Kristin, Wake Up Patriots. Kristin in this song, Kung Fu Fighting. Can't get enough of it. Good morning, everyone. Time to wake up. Wake up and get in the rabbit hole.
Good morning. I'm just so impressed that went smoothly today.
Did it? It didn't feel totally smooth. It felt a lot better than the last 2 or 3 times. So I guess we're making some progress here.
I think so. I need to switch over to a Mac computer is my problem. I'm on a Windows. It's a learning curve for me, but we're here. And it's Wonderland Wednesdays. I'm so excited.
It is, and it's a wonderland. I got to tell you, every time we do one of these segments and every time I say I'm going to go down the rabbit hole on something, it ends up being much deeper and much darker than I can ever anticipate. And I have to say that there's some good that has come out of this one, because I know yesterday you were commenting on the show, like, I'm not looking forward to this because this affects my child and how our kids are being taught here in America now, and who's funding the agenda and all of the things that we know to be corrupt. And you were a little bit afraid when I told you about this topic today.
I'm still afraid. I've watched the video and the graphics you sent me. I'm even more afraid.
Yeah, I'm ready. And I'm ready for 2024. Everybody's here is ready. Everybody's ready to get Donald Trump back in office. Everybody's ready to get our freedom back. But our freedom is being slowly chipped away at. And our kids' freedom is being chipped away at. And I don't think that, until I started homeschooling, that I really realized the indoctrination that was going on in public school with my particular child. And I'm not saying that's the case anywhere. My daughter's a teacher. There's great teachers out there. But I started to go down this rabbit hole on teaching kids about the Free Palestine movement. And as you can imagine, that became a very scary, scary place to be in every way, shape, and form. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, Kristin. And it all started with actually a viewer. And I want to say thank you to Stephanie. Stephanie sent me a copy of a tweet that showed a book that was given to children in California schools about freeing Palestine, and that this was being given away as part of a program that was being federally funded. Can you believe that?
Sadly, I can, but that's disgusting. Tell us more. What was in the book?
We're going to start to unravel the rabbit hole for sure. But I want to see first, I want to jump into the chat and say hello to everyone. And I went in there earlier and it seemed like everybody was raring to go. We had over 1,500 people yesterday. And this morning, we're already at 641. And everybody should be really super excited because we have Stefano Forte coming up later on, who's the executive director of the 1776 Project. And the reason this is really important is they are sort of the light in the darkness that I'm going to bring you in this rabbit hole. Bringing him on is going to bring a light to the darkness, I promise. So once I start to go down here and everybody gets freaked out, I promise there's an upside. But if I said the name Akia Gross to any of you, and Kristin, I know you know, because this morning I couldn't resist sending you the videos and prepping you for some of what we're going to talk about. But I'm wondering if anybody in the chat remembers her. So I'm going to give the chat a minute to see what they have to say. But, of course, Loves Christ is in there saying, paid for by Hamas, which, of course, we know this is all being funded by Hamas. And like I said yesterday, I almost don't even want to say pro-Palestine. I want to say, pro-Hamas, because these people are funding terrorism. So let's see. Anybody know the name? Anybody? Anyone? Okay, so I'm going to let that build, and I'm going to tell you a quick, positive, uplifting, God energy story before we get to the darkness, and we'll see if anybody can pin who she is. And keep an eye on the chat for me, Kristin. But yesterday, I did what I do when I'm stressed. And I think some of you probably know what that is in the chat. But one of my favorite things to do when I'm stressed, not yoga, is to find a thrift store and wander around for at least 45 minutes with absolutely no agenda whatsoever. And yesterday I was having one of my moments. I was in my office and I was feeling overwhelmed. And I said, you know what? I got to get out. I have to get out. I got to get out of the house. I need at least 45 minutes. And I went over to Goodwill, and you will never believe what I found. So I have been reading Jesus Calling since the beginning of our former show on that former network. It's been a really big highlight of my day. I know all of you love it. I know you love it, Kristen, too. And yesterday I walked into Goodwill and this almost fell off the shelf at me. So all this time I've been reading Jesus Calling off my phone after being introduced to it through Ed Henry, who was introduced by a viewer, and now I have my very own copy that I acquired at Goodwill. I feel like I manifested this and God put it in my lap as a message to tell us to keep going on the show. So Kristen, hopefully you're in. We'll be back next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, I hope.
We will.
Okay, I love that. All right, good. Well, I am going to find my place here in Jesus Calling. Did you take a look at the chat and see if anybody knows who this woman is? And Sean Lucas, yes, yoga. Yes, yoga. I do yoga all the time. I love yoga. And Sean Lucas says, I sent him to a couple thrift stores in Palm Beach, which is true, and that they were very good. Also true. Let's see.
Deborah Lynn said, yes, woke teacher out of California. Deborah Lynn, 59.
Okay, perfect. Deborah Lynn's always on top of it. Always on top of it. And she is, but she's more than that. And wait till I tell you. So let's read this real quick so we can get ourselves all ready and bring in some positive energy so we can go down the rabbit hole. So today's Jesus Calling out of my new Jesus Calling book is, let me help you get through this day. There are many possible paths to travel between your getting up in the morning and your laying down at night. Stay alert to the many choice points along the way, being continually aware of my presence. You will get through this day one way or the other. One way is to moan and groan, stumbling along with shuffling feet. This will get you to the end of the day eventually, but there's a better way. You can choose to walk with me along the path of peace, leaning on me as much as you need. There will still be difficulties along the way, but you can face them confidently in my strength. Thank me for each problem that you encounter and watch and see how I transform these trials into blessings. Amen.
Amen.
Let's do it. And let's transform these trials into blessings as we go down this rabbit hole. So yes, Deborah, you are right. She is a teacher. She calls herself an educator. And what started my rabbit hole was this whole thing about this book that was being distributed. So very quickly, I found out that, of course, Akia, who likes to go by the name Key, and also, of course, loves the pronouns they and them. And her last name is Gross. So, I find it kind of funny. I'm going to start off with a little comedy, that her name is They Gross. What do you think about that, Kristen?
I don't know. I there's so much to say there, but I'd like to be kind. And I just will say that this is deeply alarming that this person is a teacher in anywhere across any school of any age.
And I see you put up the lovely tweet about her, where they named her Teacher of the Week. I mean, I guess we can all look at the good news that there's 2 accounts tagged on here and it only has 687 likes, and I screenshotted this morning. So the upside is that not a lot of people are liking this and watching. Bad news is that it's out there in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, this is her. So this is Akia Key Gross, they, them, and you can read right about her there. She's all about the resistance, and she is the founder of what they call Woke Kindergarten. And Woke Kindergarten is out there trying to educate your kids with federal funds, and they've achieved it, and they're going to continue to achieve it until somebody puts a stop to them. But of course, we're talking about somebody who is super woke. Of course, she considers herself non-binary. I would also like to know where her parents are, and I was going to do a little research into who her family is and see if maybe, I don't know, maybe her parents want to come on the show, because I am getting more and more curious about how far the apple falls from the tree. And I'm really curious to see how she ended up where she is, because none of this makes sense. And to me, it seems like she's a spoiled rich kid that didn't get her way somewhere in life and then went to Columbia and is now torturing other children because she has some sort of childhood trauma. But that's just my 2 cents. So what brought us to this moment was this whole Teach Palestine movement that she's pushing. And if you go on their website, they have an actual visual history for kids. They then have another book called So You Made It to a Protest. And she prides herself on being a coach to other teachers. So she's going right to the root of it all. She's getting to the teachers in the classroom, and she holds a workshop where they talk about how the prison of the industrial complex is manifesting in children. I also want to say that specifically on her website, which I immediately noticed, is there's only mention of Black and brown children. So apparently if you're a white child, a Chinese child, anything else, you don't matter. And this person got $250,000, $250,000 to federally fund a California school program that was a huge failure. It was a reading and math program. It is no surprise, even though she has a master's degree from Columbia in child development psychology and special education. She couldn't run that program effectively because the woke agenda took over, and I'm sure it all went sideways. And that's, again, the blessing in this is that it did fail, because maybe less children were indoctrinated, but this is where the federal money is going. Kristin, anything to add to this? I know you've lived in California, you have a young son.
Well, it's no wonder that the economy is so bad if this is where we're sending some of our taxpayer dollars. You know, I have a 7-year-old, and at 5 for woke kindergarten, we were playing with Legos, and you know, and he still sleeps with mommy even now. So I don't understand, you know, I think that it's just disgusting that we have people trying to, one, make these children grow up quicker. They don't comprehend any of these subjects, you know, and 2, what's their end game? So if this would have succeeded as woke kindergarten, what would first, second grade, and all of these other grades would we then be in?
It's succeeding, you know, and let's make no bones about it. She lost this $250,000. That particular program was a failure, but this woke kindergarten thing is very, very real. It's still being funded, and they are still getting in the heads of these educators, which I think is the scariest part about all of it. It's bad enough that we're indoctrinating the kids, but she's finding like-minded teachers and then giving them things like, Fairfax County, Virginia. Let me bring you that one. A school district in Virginia that was there. By the way, they deleted this post, but basically they told students to listen to her audiobook. And her audiobook, this particular one, was aimed at kids and meant to teach them why they are not safe around the police. And then after the autoplay, if you actually play this video on autoplay, because I went on and tried it, guess what the next video is? The next video is about Diego. And Diego doesn't identify as a human boy. He identifies as a tree. And that's totally fine. She also distributes woke words of the day to teachers. One of them last week was ceasefire. And just back in January, she was hired by, this saddens me greatly because I'm a little bit of an art nerd, and unfortunately I can't be because of the woke agenda, but the Museum of Modern Art hired her to work on the Martin Luther King workshop with children, and the event was recommended for ages 6 and up.
Well, wow, there's a lot to that's certainly a rabbit hole. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, any parents that would allow this in their school are complicit in the destruction of our children, right? Any parents who don't stand up and just take your, I mean, if this woman, if I walked into school and this was my teacher, I would walk right back out. I wouldn't even stay a day. I would take my kid, and I don't know how I would do it, but I would figure something out. I would, you know, have to call grandma. I'd have to call on friends. I'd have to get help. But, you know, I wouldn't even leave my child there unattended, not for one single day.
I understand, and I feel exactly the same way. And, you know, we are probably a little bit more involved. Let's just say I'm going to give some parents the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them a little room to skate here, because you have to remember that this woman is educating other teachers. So she's finding vulnerable teachers, and there's no excuse for it. It shouldn't happen at all. But she is actually indoctrinating the teacher that then is indoctrinating the kid. So let's say you have some teacher that, I don't know, is mentally ill, not in a good place. I'm going to, again, leave it open. But this woman gets into that teacher's head, and that teacher doesn't, let's call it what it is, look like this woman. Because if I saw this woman, my radar would be up that perhaps I didn't want her teaching my child, because we would not be at least politically aligned, if nothing else. I mean, this is the truth. I mean, this is so blatant. And again, I can find agreement with people that I'm not politically aligned with, but I would know immediately that this person is then going to teach my child that they can be non-binary or a million other things that are going to happen because, yes, because of the way that she looks. I'm going to call it what it is. Why can't we say that? And this is exactly it. This is transparent. But what scares me as this is being transparent, but how many other teachers that might be meek or quieter, that aren't standing up, that are covertly teaching your children and getting into their heads in a way that maybe isn't as noticeable, isn't as in your face, I'm in the resistance, because that's really easy to spot. But what happens when it trickles in slowly?
Well, and there's a lot of, I would venture to say, liberal white parents that might believe, for whatever guilt they feel about maybe having a racist nobody ever in their family, but they're subject to, this standard, especially in California, where they're, sort of worrying about what people think of them because they care so much about that and they tolerate it. And so now we have a whole generation, at least half of a generation, those of us who are smart are going to take our kids out, right? But that's only, let's say 50%. And we're going to move away. Some people who really, parent their children in a conscious way, they're going to move even out of that state. Many people have left California, but there's still a huge population there. There's huge population in other places like New York City, where this type of education goes on. It's one of the reasons I moved my mother out of California, is stuff like this. So,
yeah. And New York is, New York is where our guest hails from. I don't know. I can't see if we have the guest up. I know you can see if he's logged in, but Stefano Forte runs.
Not.
Okay, he should be anytime now, but the 1776 Project, and what I liked about him, and the reason I wanted him to weigh in on this is I knew not only would he know who she is, but they are working actively to counteract the efforts of organizations like hers, singling her out a little bit because she's so insane and so left that you can't ignore it. But where she is, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people like her that are trying to educate and indoctrinate our children. And it's about time that, we have organizations and PACs that are willing to stand up for us, and being the mama bear like you are, Kristin, I can't think of anything better. But Stefano actually graduated college during the pandemic, which I thought was really interesting. And then he was the youngest person to ever run for state senate in New York. He was 23. I think he ran for a seat in Queens. And one of the things that the organization is looking to do is they're looking to reverse what they call learning loss. And I like the way they put that, reversing learning loss, because I think that, for me as a parent, I've seen a lot of deterioration.
Well, and he just came on, so I'm going to add him.
Amazing.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hi, Stefano. Great to see you. Welcome to the show. I don't know if you were backstage at all and if you could hear what we were talking about, but I sent you a little message this morning about one of the subjects of our conversation, who also hails from the state of New York, unbelievably. It happens to be one of the leftist people I've ever seen in my life. And yes. I held up her picture earlier, and because Kristin and I were talking about if she was in your classroom, you'd immediately pull your kids out of the classroom because you would know immediately that she was not going to teach your children in a way that you would agree with, because visually she has adapted herself to send that message. But aside from that, she's actually going after the teachers, and she's finding the weak-minded teachers to indoctrinate the kids.
Yes.
Kind of evil genius in pink hair.
Yes, absolutely. First off, thank you very much for having me on. And I heard you singing my praises. I appreciate that. That was very, very kind of the both of you. So yeah, this is essentially the source of this woke mind virus, as I like to call it, the teachers, colleges, as well as she likes to call herself Key Gross. She is a they, them. So she's multiple people, apparently. She essentially is kind of the paragon of these woke teachers that are going to the teachers' colleges, and they're not learning phonics. They're not learning how to teach students. They're learning essentially how to indoctrinate. This is the breeding ground. This is where the next generation of woke teachers are going to come out of. And she is just one of many that we have been dealing with. And the 1776 Project is going throughout the country to make sure that we stop this in the classroom. And the only way to stop this in the classroom is by getting rid of the school board members that are allowing this. So it's really a big problem in our schools. They're not learning how to read and write. They're learning how to be the next generation of radicals, and we're here to stop that.
Am I correct to say that there was a school board member recently that was ousted in Brooklyn? Am I wrong? Did I read something about that? And did that have anything to do with this? Do you know about that at all?
A school board member in Brooklyn. I know that there were some school board members in Brooklyn that were involved in perhaps something like this. The New York City does not have elected school board offices. So I'm not quite sure. But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, listen, New York City has become one of the woke capitals of the world. So definitely there's got to be something along those lines going on here.
Yeah, I'm just jumping into our chat, Kristen. I don't know if you're looking there. I don't know what questions our chat has, but I'm going to take a look and see what they're talking about right now.
And I have the clips of her. So why don't I run the videos? So we can
let's do that.
See her live, basically.
Ooh.
And the rumors are true. I am anti-Israel. I am pro-Palestine. And I am 100% 10 toes down anti-Israel. I believe Israel has no right to exist. I believe the United States has no right to exist. I believe every settler colony who has committed genocide against native peoples, against indigenous people, has no right to exist. I believe in a free Palestine, from the river to the sea. I believe one day Palestine will be free. Is this news to anybody? White supremacy destroys for the sake of destruction. Abolition destroys for the sake of creation. We are not the same. I have an unwavering respect for children, an unwavering love and care and compassion for children, a commitment to children and to their freedom, to their learning, to their lives, to sustaining their lives. Y'all are the demons. Y'all are the villains. We've been trying to end y'all, get free of y'all.
Well, that's just fantastic, isn't it? I mean, that is who is teaching our children, and they're unabashed. They are confident. They are incredibly arrogant. And look, when it comes to the Palestine issue, these tents in these colleges did not spur up out of nowhere, right? This is a very linear line of thinking for them. White people equals bad. Jewish people are bad, therefore Jewish people are white and they're bad and they're terrible. Okay, that's what their thinking is. So these tents in these colleges, these riots in these colleges, they did not come from nowhere. They came from teachers like that teaching the next generation of students to hate Israelis, to hate Jewish people, to hate the state of Israel, to hate America. Apparently, she lives here. We should, send her a one-way ticket to wherever she pleases if she hates this country so much. So that's essentially the problem here. Teachers like that indoctrinating not only other teachers, but the students that create little radicals in these colleges.
And she went to Columbia. I'm sure you're not shocked by that, Kristin.
No, but give us our $250,000 back. That was my taxpayer dollars. If you think that the United States has no right to exist, I will gladly, out of my own money, purchase you a ticket to anywhere you would like to go out of the United States. Maybe like, Thailand or someplace, but I'm going to pick like a really impoverished area so that you can learn what it's like to live elsewhere. And then we would like our money back, because you should not be given any taxpayer dollars if you're going to publicly go on a platform defaming the country that gave you that money. I mean,
well, and I'm just reading. I went to reread the article about the $250,000 as you mentioned it, just to make sure that I could wrap my head around this. But the whole thing started when the students weren't performing up to capacity. It was actually, they were like 12% of students that were, had been way below, whatever level they were supposed to be on. So this guy, Jason Raymond, basically chose this organization. So you have a school district superintendent who is the one that picked this organization, and he had the right to say how this $250,000 was being spent. That raises a lot of red flags for me, just as an American. Like, how has this possibly happened? And it wasn't until after the money was spent that the teachers came forward and started to say, hey, we're not on board with this. And it wasn't a lot of them that were willing to speak up because they were afraid for their jobs. But thankfully, like this guy, Tiger Craven Naley, stood up and said, believe that the organization was, completely out of line. And you have to think to yourself, why aren't more of these teachers standing up?
Well, I think a lot of these teachers are not standing up, I think, is twofold. One, I think a lot of teachers actually agree with this and agree with what they're being taught. This is what they were taught in the teachers' colleges. There's a course in one of these colleges from Rochelle Gutierrez, where she teaches rehumanizing mathematics for Blacks, Indigenous, and Latinx students in the University of Illinois. And this is what they're being taught in the teachers' colleges that they're bringing into the classroom. So that's number one. And number two, which is equally as important, is that a lot of these teachers are being bullied into staying silent. And they know that there are major consequences, and they could be thinking to themselves, well, if I speak up, maybe the board will get angry at me. Maybe the superintendent will get angry at me. I don't want to lose my job. Let me just keep my head down, and what happens in my classroom stays in my classroom, right? That's why an organization like ours is so important, right? We get tips. Parents tell us what's going on in these school board meetings, what's going on in their children's classrooms. They come to us and they say, this school board member needs to go. This superintendent needs to go. And that's where we jump in. We get involved in these races. And I tell everybody that I speak to, the most important election on your ballot is not president, it's not Senate, it is school board, because they are the ones that are in charge of our students' education and the next generation. We do not want them to end up like Key, who's going around talking about how she wants to, abolish the United States. We want proud, patriotic children in this country.
Absolutely. And it's so crazy to think, like, how did we get here, Kristin? I remember, at one time, thinking that going to an Ivy League school was, something to be proud of. Are we at the point now, Kristin, where it's just, at this point, just a huge red flag? I feel like it is.
I think Ivy League education is a bad investment in yourself at this point in time, because one, a lot of colleges don't teach you skills to actually go out and get a job. And then when you go to these schools, I have a client, Latino Wall Street, Gabby, who came here, legally immigrated here from Peru, and went to NYU because it was her dream. So she worked really hard her whole life. She did everything the right way. She got here. And now look at what it's become with all these protests. And she just feels like she wasted, $200,000 of her money. And I feel like parents should, at this point in time, be conscious parenting, very active. When we were kids, Karyn and I, I'm sure they just dropped you off at school. Nobody knew what was going on at schools. Your teacher, I remember putting my hands on the desk and being slapped with a ruler when I was bad. Teachers were disciplining you. There were like no holds barred. And now you have to actually go and sit in your kids' class to see what's going on, and you want cameras, and I mean it's a whole different style of living and parenting.
Yeah, if I could jump in on that, I think that COVID actually, for as bad as it did for our children's education and the learning loss that took place at the hands of the lockdowns and so many of these draconian measures, I think that there was a silver lining to it, which was parents saw what was going on in their children's classrooms. They were there when the Zoom calls were going on. They were looking over the syllabuses, and they were saying to themselves, this is not what I sent my children to be educated towards. Why are they talking about Black Lives Matter in my child's kindergarten class? Why are they talking about race and who's an oppressor and who's not? So I think that parents actually got more involved, forced to be involved, because they heard exactly what the teachers were talking about in these classrooms. So I think that while COVID, yes, it was very, very bad for our children's education, it brought to light a lot of these issues. And at this point, the Ivy League education, what is it worth now? When employers see that on a resume, are they going to say, oh, we're going to have a hard, diligent worker here? Or are they going to have, a boardroom activist? That's what they're worried about.
And rightfully so. And, when you talk about, money and dollars that are being spent, like one of the statistics here, which I find just unbelievable, is if you look at these programs that are federally funded, and we'll just break it down and look just at the state of California, because we keep bringing up this $250,000 that was spent from 2020 to 2021. That's the statistic I have in front of me. Only 16 California school districts spent $35 million through these federally funded programs. When we wonder why we have all these problems. And meanwhile, we have the Biden administration out there saying that, they're going to write off student loans and they're going to do all these things with our money. Well, what about this 35 million? If that's only 16 districts, I don't know how many districts there are in the state of California, but there's a lot more than 16. If 16 districts are spending $35 million, we're talking about something that's in the billions. And I want to real quick just give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Done With Debt, because you brought up COVID as well, which was really hard on most of our chat, most of our audience, everybody out there in America. And, you were fortunate enough to graduate during COVID, which I want to give you a big round of applause for that, because so many other students weren't as fortunate. But Done With Debt is helping people recover right now. And they are actually offering a special to everybody that's watching this show. You just go to donewithdebt.com, you select VNN, and it's donewithdebt.com. V is in Victor, VNN, the Vigilant News Network. You go there and they will help you. They're experts. They have brilliant strategies. There's options that you can qualify for. And hopefully we can get over some of this hump, because again, Stefano, COVID hits, you graduate, you then run, one of the youngest people I think ever to run for state senate in New York. And here we are talking to you today.
Yeah, it was an incredible ride. I graduated at the height of the lockdowns. I was working on campaigns, and then I decided to jump in myself. But I'll tell you something. Running for office was a wonderful experience, but the experience that I've had here on the 1776 project, it's just so much more fulfilling. It honestly, because you're always thinking to yourself when you're running for office, like, the next generation, what are we doing for them? What are we doing for them? At 1776 project, there's tangible differences that we can see once we've gotten involved in a school board versus when we haven't gotten involved in a school board. And to talk to parents and activists and even educators who have come to us and said, thank you. It really was an incredible ride. And I think that COVID, for a lot of the bad that it did, and it did a lot of bad, I think that there was a new generation like myself that were kind of disillusioned with the liberal way of thinking and the, Democrat one-party state here in New York. And we've got a lot of great activists coming out of New York. There's a lot of great activists that are coming out of New York and are really making a difference. So, I appreciate, again, you bringing that up. And yes, I wasn't one of the youngest to run, but if I would have won, I would have been one of the youngest to get in. But all good. Greener pastures now with 1776, thank God.
Absolutely. Thank God. And, it's funny how, when one door closes, another opens. I mean, this is like a common phrase, but we really know that. I mean, God shows us that every day, Kristin.
He does. I'm hopeful for New York. Once upon a time I ran for office there also, a long time ago. And I was before my time, since a lot of the platforms I was running on have since come to fruition in New York. So I've watched it sort of from 2010. Some of the things I ran for have already happened. They happened a few years later. So I'm hopeful New York will turn it around, because it's a great state. But, I'm deeply concerned about our children and, what that looks like, and how we can, maybe you can help us and tell us how we can become more active to make some change.
Absolutely. So how parents can become more active is, number one, go to your local school board meetings, see what they're talking about. Yes, they're long. Yes, they're tedious, but this is one of the most important things that you could do for your child. When they come home with the syllabus, read the syllabus, see what they're going to be going over in class, talk to your kids and say, hey, what are they teaching you today? What did you learn today? Have a conversation with your child to see what's going on. And then lastly, if you find something out, if there's something in your school board that you don't like, or you find out that they're being funded and they're bringing in woke education into the classroom, or you could see CRT, and sometimes critical race theory is not always advertised as, hey, we're teaching critical race theory. They have really fun ways of kind of spinning it and saying, oh no, this is social emotional learning and culturally responsive learning, right? This is not CRT. You're going to want to find those indicators. And you could go to our website. Our website has a tip line where you could say a tip. You could say what's going on. And then if you want to support us, go to our website, see the work that we're doing. The work speaks for itself. In Illinois and Wisconsin, in Texas and Wisconsin, we had a 60% win rate for our endorsed candidates. 60% of our candidates are getting over the hump. So not only is what we're doing, our priorities are in the right place, but we are winning races.
That's incredible. It really is. You guys are doing great work. And I knew you'd be the perfect person to weigh in on this. As soon as I started reading about it yesterday, I texted a mutual friend of ours. I said, can you connect us? Because he needs to come on the show, because he's going to know all about her and about what's going on. And this is craziness. And I want to give a shout out to the chat real quick. One Citizen Z, Kristin, is so much more responsible than both of us. I was doing that little sponsor read in between that for Done with Debt. And he or she says that they were done with debt as soon as they stopped spending above their means. So I want to give them a shout out, because they have a lot more self-discipline than most of us here on the show.
That's a great comment. But I think we have, a government that is creating a whole generation of people that just spend, and then their debts are somehow wiped off. And that's deeply concerning to me also, because, that money to pay off those debts have to come from somewhere, whether it's, college loans or, stimulus, and the rest of us who are actually working and trying to get ahead are the ones funding that through our tax dollars. So, I'm not sure what the outlook is for us right now.
And certainly not. And, hopefully 2024 is going to be a pivot point, because otherwise, I don't know where we're going to go. I don't think any of us do. And Florida for Trump says, Stefano, that he was paddled in the second grade. So I think the paddling was probably a little bit before your time. But, where is the line these days? Because, we've talked a lot about the wokeness and how there's no discipline. And now there's this thing that's trending. I don't know if you've seen it, but they call it gentle parenting. It's gentle parenting. Like, what as educators, where do educators step in? Like, where do they need to be? Where's the line these days?
Well, I think paddling is definitely over the line, but educators need to have control of their classrooms, right? And we want to make sure that children are disciplined. Obviously, we don't want to put hands on students, especially in this day and age, but we want to make sure that educators have the ability to send children to detention if they're being bad. There needs to be, I think that we have an entire generation that has no idea that your actions have consequences. Right. And when you do something like pitch a tent in the middle of your college campus, there are going to be consequences for that. If you're in classroom and you're being in the classroom and you're being disruptive, there's going to be consequences for that. So in terms of discipline, we need to make sure, number one, we have school safety officers. That's pivotal. That's a lot of districts do not have those, and we want to make sure that they have them. And number two, teachers need the ability from parents to tell students, like, hey, listen, you got to quiet down. Listen, I'm going to send you to the principal's office if you don't stop acting like this, right? And there's not going to be a combative relationship between parents and teacher, so that's one way. And again, the school safety officers, I think, are huge because they ensure that the schools are safe. Bullying is a very, very big problem. Right. And we need to make sure that parents are having conversations with their children. Educators are having conversations with their children. So where's the line? The line, unfortunately, is very blurred. But what I can tell you is definitely paddling is way over the line.
Am I wrong again? And I hate to keep bringing her up, but her face is staring at me from my desk. So I have to keep just looking at it. But to me, Kristin, and I was bullied as a girl. I mean, I think we all were. I went to the roller skating rink. I know, Stefano, this is before your time, but at the roller skating rink, I could usually pick out the girls that were going to want to beat me up in the bathroom, and there were usually a plethora of them, and they normally looked like her. They look like her. Again, she's screaming bully. Everything about the way this person presents themselves screams bully. So who are the bullies here? And where did we get? How did we end up at this place? Is this somebody who was bullied as a child? I'm not making excuses for her, him, they, where, what. But at some point, something went very wrong with this person. And did we just not catch this in the education system of this new millennia? Where are we that this is what's happening, Stefano?
Unfortunately, again, this is a byproduct of the teaching colleges. This is a byproduct of the teaching colleges. And yes, this person is a bully. She is bullying her students to believe exactly what she believes. She is not asking for an open classroom. She wants a closed classroom where she is the Joseph Stalin of her classroom, and she will make every student chant from the river to the sea, because that's what she believes in, and that's what your child needs to believe in. And if your child or you doesn't like it, you're all white supremacists, and we're going to expel you from the school. That is what these people want, right? So is she a bully? Absolutely, she is a bully. She is somebody who wants to make sure that her ideology is shoved down people's throats, right? And the only stop to that is the school board. The only way parents have an outlet of saying, no, you're not going to teach my child to hate America. No, I want my child to learn how to read and write. No, mathematics is not racist, right? The only way to stop that is to get at the school boards. Run for school board yourself. Find out and educate yourself. This is the problem with a lot of states. Most states do not have partisan school board elections. What does that mean? They don't know who the Republican or the Democrat is. They're going in there blind, hoping that they found out who the candidate was. Do your research on the candidates. Find out who they are. It is pivotal to make sure that there is a stopgap between people like her and your students.
Yeah, the stopgap is key. That's the thing. I think that's what the scariest thing for all of us is, what is that stopgap? Because from what I can tell in researching at least this person, and again, she's one example of many, many, many others, hundreds, thousands, who knows. But in looking at that, what I found surprising is this is done sort of in full view, but also done covertly. So you have this person who puts herself out there, who dresses like a bully, who looks like a bully, who looks like she's non-binary. And again, if you're non-binary, are you supposed to look like anything? That also confuses me. The whole thing is confusing. But when you break it down, the bottom line is the covert side of it, the sinister side of it, the very dirty side of it. They do very covertly. When these school districts are spending the $35 million, they're not sending home a letter to parents and saying, oh, by the way, we're going to hire Key. She has pink hair and she's completely insane. And we are going to have her teach your children on how to disrupt whiteness, because the disrupt whiteness was the reason that the teachers started to complain in California. I don't know that they would have complained until it went that far. How do we stop it? What do we do? Help us, Stefano.
Well, Key doesn't scare me. Key doesn't scare me. And I'll tell you why Key doesn't scare me, because she's loud and proud about it. We can see her from a mile away. We go, uh-oh, this is trouble, right? The ones that scare me are the ones that very quietly infect our children's brains with this mind viruses, the ones that don't have the pride flag in their classrooms, the ones that don't necessarily look like they're the ones that are going to tell your child to hate America. The ones that scare me are the ones that are covert and the ones that are going into the classroom and they're just saying things as a matter of fact, not screaming, not throwing their fist in the air like Key, right? The ones that go into the classroom and say, well, you know who lived here before the white colonizers came here? The Native Americans lived here. This is really their land. And it's not so much a violent, angry thing. It's a matter of fact thing. Those are the ones that scare me. What do we do about it? I implore everybody in your chat, I implore your audience, scream it from the rooftops. Get involved in your child's education. You have the time. Please look over what they're bringing home. Look over their homework. Talk to them about what is going on, right? And the other aspect of this is, again, the school boards. Look at our website, see the work that we're doing and see how we're fighting back against this wokeness in the classroom. The only thing stopping a Soros-backed education in the classroom is the 1776 project. That is the only thing stopping it. We are the only pack of our kind. Support us, support your kids, and look through, see what they're learning, because it will shock you. Key's on Instagram. We know what she's all about. It's about the groups that are covert and quietly infecting our children's minds. We have the antidote for Key, right? And it's the 1776 project.
It's wonderful. And I know that our chat is going to go crazy and that they're going to be visiting your website in droves because they are very supportive. We have such an amazing audience that has stuck with us through thick or thin, from one network to another network to here. I mean, they have stuck with us since the very beginning, and we are so thankful. And we're more of a community here on this show. So I know that they're going to support you and they're going to believe in everything that you're talking about, because we do. Kristen and I are big fans, and we know you're doing great work. I also want to mention that you mentioned the head of the snake, George Soros, who I can be accused of being a little bit obsessed with because I bring him up every single day on this show, because it's unavoidable that once you follow the money, it leads you to George Soros. And a lot of our viewers and people in the chat are scared that they're going to end up in a bunker somewhere. But if they do, they're going to need to have a food supply. And we have a really great sponsor, My Patriots Supply. And right now they offer a 3-month food supply. And that 3-month food supply is actually delicious food. They talk about it in the chat. They like, in particular, Stefano, I don't know if you're a fan, it sounds like you might like Italian food. They have a fettuccine Alfredo that we hear is out of this world. And right now, if you go ahead and you go to My Patriot Supply, you will get $200 off and free shipping off of that kit. I don't know how much longer this is going to last for. And the website is preparewithvnn.com. preparewithvnn.com, and you get $200 off. You get free shipping, and that way you have your kit. So when it all goes sideways, you're ready. Or if it gets any worse economically and we can't afford to buy groceries, especially in New York, because I saw the prices when I was there, Stefano, you know, we can eat the food out of the My Patriots supply pack.
Listen, only Patriots eat fettuccine Alfredo, okay? Every bug out bag needs a fettuccine Alfredo to make sure that when you're on the road and the nuclear apocalypse has come, you got to make sure that you're eating well when you're out there.
You do. And this kit that they make, right, it's really cool about it is they've broken it down too. Like it not only is it a 3-month supply, it's 2,000 calories counted for each meal. So for somebody like me, I'm on the smaller side. Thankfully, I don't have a big problem with my weight right now, but we have another sponsor, which I want to get to, that can help you with that issue. You know, fortunately, that's not the issue that I have. So I think I could probably 6 months. So that's my goal, is I want to get the kit and I want to see if I can make it last 6 months, because I'm just going to do 1,000 calories a day plus some fresh fruits and vegetables. But obviously, you know, in the economy that we're living in today, it's actually more economical to get the kit from My Patriot Supply than it is to go ahead and order groceries. But I don't know if you're going to lose weight on the My Patriot Supply diet. So I don't want to promise anybody that. But we now have a new sponsor, which is called Lean. And a lot of people are taking these Ozempic injections right now. They're doing all sorts of things to lose weight. But Lean may be the way for you to go. And I want you to check them out. You go to leanvnn.com. Again, it's leanvnn.com. And it's the doctors at Brickhouse Nutrition. And hopefully, if you're having a little bit of a struggle, we can get you through it, and we're here to help.
I'm trying to gain weight, so I think the My Patriot Supply might be my route.
So we got both. We got both. You can either gain weight with My Patriot Supply, or you can lose weight with Lean. You can go either way on this show.
Listen, if you think you're getting too big when it hits the fan, you could keep Lean in your bug out bag too. A little fettuccine Alfredo. You got the Lean. You got the best of both worlds.
I like it. I like it.
In the apocalypse too, right? I mean, you don't want to look bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you don't want to look pasty or pale during the apocalypse either. We're probably going to get a sponsor for that next. We have we really have been so lucky with this show that everything that we have had, My Patriot Supply has been with us since the beginning, like the beginning of time, like again, other places, other time, other chapters. And, you know, we have a very loyal group, and I remain very thankful that we're doing this show now every Tuesday and Wednesday. And I hope, you know, you're going to come on with us again and go down another rabbit hole with us. Absolutely.
I'm ready to go down the rabbit hole. The both of us.
Amazing.
We're all three of us. Excuse me. I'm ready to go. This is fantastic. And thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And how can everybody follow you? You know, we talked a lot about the pack, but how can they follow you and see your great content?
My Twitter is Steph, STEF, the number 4, New York, as well as my Instagram. And please definitely go on the PAC's website. A lot of really great stuff if you want to support the PAC. We're doing great things. We're actually jumping into Tennessee races next month in August. So this is the first time they're doing partisan elections in Tennessee. So please support us. Help us with that. We want to make sure that our candidates are over the finish line. If you live in Tennessee, take a look at our endorsed candidates, okay? Educate yourself on who the candidates are. And once again, I really do appreciate coming on. And absolutely, I'd love to be on very soon.
Awesome. We will definitely have you back. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a great one, guys.